sovereign soul, breaking the archonic matrix, the second birth and the end of spiritual imprisonment, the hidden gospel and the radical second birth. This podcast opens by contrasting the gentle teacher image of Jesus with the revolutionary figure found in the Ghazni text found at Naj Hamadi. The second birth is not the modern religious born man ritual. It's a ritual metamorphosis of a human consciousness that shatters the architecture of spiritual control. The suppression, these texts, Gospel of Thomas Philip and the Secret Book of John, were buried for 1600 years because they create sovereign beings rather than obedient believers. Jesus' teaching in the Gospel of Thomas: when you make the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, is described as a literal energetic event that rewrites the operating system of the soul. Phase 2 is the 5 phases of transformation. The host breaks down the authentic transformation into 5 distinct dismantling phases: awakening the divine spark, the ignition of the dormant seed of pure consciousness, breaking archonic frequency, stepping out of implanted programs like fear, scarcity, and victimhood, anomnesis, remembrance, a sudden overwhelming hood of knowing your true origin in the pleroma divine fullness, death of the ego identity, the dissolution of the survival construct shaped by social and cultural program, the luminous return, emanating a divine frequency that makes the soul ungraspable to lower systems. And part 3, why this knowledge is tragically dangerous. This segment explains why the second birth is a threat to the material power structure, economic and social impact, okay? A person who realizes their eternal nature stops fearing death and exploitation. They become essentially ungovernable. Archonic food sources, these entities fed on low-frequency emotions such as anger, worry. An awakened human stops generating this food, causing an existential crisis for the control system. Historical warfare. The Council of Nicaea, Nicaea 325 CE, is described as a spiritual warfare designed to eliminate any teaching that suggested humans could connect to the divine without an institution. The gauntlet of interface. The podcast warns that the closer you get to the second birth, the more targeted the attacks become. Spiritual confusion warfare, flooding the seeker with contradictory information and new age junk food to keep them spinning in circles. Relationships and external chaos, sudden explosions, unstable relationships, or financial crisis designed to pull you back into spiritual amnesia. Spiritual whiplash, old patterns returning with a vengeance to make you feel like you are failing precisely when you are on the verge of breakthrough. Nullifying the soul contracts, part 5. A deep dive into the 5 fine print of spiritual imprisonment. The contracts, agreements that made during trauma or childhood, identity, fear, desire, karma contracts that give archons legal authority over you, energy. The solution, the second birth fundamentally alters your legal status in the spiritual realm. When the soul recognizes it's a sovereign nation, all previous contracts become null and void instantly. Navigating the afterlife toll gates. The final segment discusses the death machinery of the archons. The false light after death. Archons use shape-shifting projections, appearing as relatives or religious figures, to harvest consent for reincarnation. The night vision of the soul. Those who have achieved the second birth can see through these illusions. They carry the passwords, frequency signatures, to move past the planetary toll gates and return to the monad, the source. The conclusion is the calling. The podcast ends with a call to action for the chosen ones. Awakening is not a hobby. It requires radical honesty and willingness to let the false self die. Signs of readiness, feeling that the world is transparently false, experiencing synchronicities and urgent eternal fire for truth. My closing message today is your individual transformation is an act of rebellion that serves the collective awakening of humanity. Watch the full teachings. Um, Follow me here. Jesus warned chosen ones about the second birth. I will be talking more about that. And the proof of that someone does and is and has had their second birth is as if they are having that night vision where they achieve the second birth, they can see through illusions. They can carry the passwords, frequency signatures to move past the planetary toll gates and return to the monad, the source. Exactly. Caramba. See you guys in another recording. Bye.